Good to see you again. Let's talk about something that I've been asked about and that is quite interesting. I've been asked by many people, especially recently, how many people do you personally know that have switched from the standard diet or whatever they're on to the carnivore diet? And at this point, just two. And actually, now it is one. I've been storing a few things in my garage for somebody I know that has had some difficulties and moved around and needed a place to put it. Well, he passed away as of last Wednesday. So I've been taking time. I've been busy working, but I took some time out to go through some of the things. And I found something that could explain his life. Here it is. Evidently, this must have been sitting on his desk or it must have been on his wall. But I don't know what this is. It looks like it could be an elephant or some other type of pachyderm. I don't know. But these three words are very important. What does it say? Death before diet. Hmm. Now, what could that mean? Well, my impression is this is somebody that would rather be dead than to be on a diet. Now, when we talk about diet, what do we actually mean? When I think of a diet, I think about the way that something eats. For example, the natural diet of a certain animal is this. Or, that's what I think of. A lot of times when people use the word diet, they're thinking about, oh, I have to change what I eat. I have to eat a bunch of grass and drink juices and all this other stuff, or whatever it is. Well, I've known this man for about 10 years. I did some work for him, and, we kind of talked, and he had all these ideas, and, a lot of, it was interesting. Now, over the years, one of the things that he liked to do was to eat. And like a lot of people, he doesn't like to eat alone. So if it was, I completed some work or I had something that was going on and then it was time to celebrate, he would always, or if the same thing happened to him, oh, you want to go eat? Let's go eat. Let's go eat. Okay, we'll go eat. And he always had some place in mind, but normally if I would get there, I would find that there's nothing there that I really want to eat. So we agreed that the best place to go would be a buffet, all you can eat type place. That's usually where we would go. So if we went to the Chinese buffet, or maybe we went to the Haitian buffet, or maybe we went to a Golden Corral, or whatever the place happened to be. At that time, they even had a Kentucky Fried Chicken that had a buffet. They had several of them down here in the 1990s, but by the mid 2010s, there really wasn't that. I think it was just one. So we would go to a buffet to eat out, and I would see that he would eat all different things. He'd have some rice and pasta and maybe some kind of meat, and then at the end, the dessert. The worst part about eating out with him is that somewhere in the meal, he'd have to use a bathroom. And he'd go into the restroom, and maybe 20, 30 minutes later, he'd get out. Very strange. On the rare occasions when I have to use a restroom, I'm in and out of there in 5 minutes. But anyway, observing what he ate, he began to observe what I eat. I eat large amounts of food, but I only eat meats when I go to a buffet. Sometimes cheeses, but basically meats. And that's it. I don't eat. He says, oh, do you eat dessert? Nope, I don't eat dessert. Telling me about donuts and the juice place and eclairs and all this other nasty stuff, which I call duck food. And at the time, he was living in an apartment that had a bunch of Muscovy ducks around it, and he had a bunch of cats. And one of the problems he had is that the Muscovy ducks would come and eat all the cat food. Well, obviously, this is a person that had issues in terms of health. In his mid-50s, he had had a heart attack. He had had symptoms before that, being tired, falling asleep at the wheel, not feeling good. And ever since I knew him, he could barely walk from the handicap space to the buffet. So this was somebody, and I told him, I said, you remind me of a duck. What do you mean you remind me of a duck? Well, think about it. What does a duck do? A duck eats a bunch of crap, it wags its tail, waddles around, breathes hard, it goes like that. I said, that's you, you're a duck. So, but you know how it is. Some people get offended, most of us don't. So over the years, every time I'd see him, I'd have to make some kind of joke. I'd tell him how fat he was. Say, oh, I'm losing weight. It's just like his home. He said, I'm cleaning up. The place was bad. I mean, I'm a hoarder. You can see I have a lot of stuff. But his place was a little different than mine. Mine, I get stuff and it moves around. Every time you come to my place, you'll see that things are slightly different. But in his place, if something sat there, it could sit there for decades. Well, eventually he had to move, and I was helping him move. And we moved him from several places, one to the other. Each time it was a downsize. Because of his health issues and age, his business and income went down over time. So it became more and more difficult to survive. But anyway, for all this time, it was pretty much, I did some work, and then once in a while we go out to eat. He had some idea or some invention or whatever he wanted to come up with. He'd talk to me about it, and usually I'd shoot it down because my mind is practical. Some people do dream a lot, which is a good thing. But, I'm one of those people that I like to examine things in the real world and see if they will work or not. But anyway, so he continued to eat his whatever diet, and this is someone that had a collection of spices and sauces and all these things. And he'd tell me about every restaurant and every hole in the wall. In his papers, which I don't have, a friend of his threw all those out, he had probably thousands of menus and coupons and such for different restaurants. So he could tell me all the places that had a unique flavor and all the things that he liked and so on. Meanwhile, you'd see me eat, and all I did was throw some meat in a pot, no salt, no spices, nothing, and just eat it. He'd always say, how can you stand that? How can you eat this food without getting tired of it, without getting bored with it? Well, it tastes good to me. Well, eventually, my mom's advanced age and the situation that she was in, I had to move in with her and take care of her for about 4 years, pretty much nonstop. So my work life and social life disappeared, and I went into survival mode. But he still did come over now and then to contact me, whatever. Well, eventually my mom passed away, and at the same time we had the whole, COVID problem that sort of took over the world. So I was basically, just going back, trying to get my life back together and try to recultivate some of the work that I did, some of the people that I knew. And the good thing was that because of the virus, a lot of people that I had worked for before, they were getting into the remote working idea. And I had a lot of knowledge, and I had ways of setting them up. So that became my new business, is setting up these people, getting them more used to doing things online, setting up their home office, having their workers work remotely. And believe it or not, most of them, as far as I know, their productivity actually went up. So that's a good thing. But anyway, this person that I've mentioned, the one that has this, he began to reconnect, and knowing that my mother was no longer around, I was no longer taking care of her, he came up with the idea, well, can I come over and eat with you? Because obviously he doesn't like eating by himself. So I said, sure, you can come and eat with me. And beginning in 2020, he began to eat with me. But one of the problems I ran into is that a lot of the things that he liked, I mean, I could make it, but I didn't eat it. So he felt guilty about it. He says, you know, I feel bad that you make all these things for me and you don't eat it. I said, yeah, well, I'm not going to eat breaded, fried, whatever. You know, I'm not going to eat desserts. I don't eat fruit very often, occasionally. You know, I'd get him a watermelon from the garden and cut it open, and I may take a couple of bites, and that's it. I can't eat anymore. I don't like it. And I'll make some plantains, fried plantains. He likes those. I may eat a couple of them. That's it. I don't want it to eat anymore. I just don't like a lot of those foods. And he was always giving me ideas as to how to make the food taste better, what sauces to use, what flavors, and so on. I would do it, no problem. I have no problem cooking. I also like popcorn. I have a popcorn machine that I keep right in my living room, and when I had a home theater, I had a popcorn machine in there too. Somebody comes over, I want them to enjoy. So I have no problem with that. But over time, he started to see, well, maybe this strange diet that Rick eats could be interesting. So he began to shift from his more standard flavor-oriented diet to a meat diet. And as time went on, he began to like the meat diet more and more. For example, he didn't want the breaded chicken anymore. He wanted the regular chicken cooked in lard. He started to appreciate the beef stew, the very basic beef stew. He liked that too. And the same thing with some of the other more interesting meats. Now, he never got to taste duck, but he did get to eat iguana. And obviously also fish and some of the other things that I've cooked up in the past. Now, one thing that I did do that was not carnivore, it was coconut shrimp. So, but I would get the coconuts from my own yard, and we did use coconut oil to make a mayonnaise because he liked mayonnaise in the burger. And originally he was eating the burgers with bread that I was making. But eventually I showed him the heart attack burger using pork rinds and eggs, and he switched to that too. And the interesting thing was that despite all of his health conditions, being morbidly obese and having heart issues and having trouble walking and just having all these problems, he actually started to get better. I thought that was quite an encouraging sign. Here you have someone that was basically circling the drain on his fourth pacemaker, always in pain, having problems, and being able to get around better. Walking around, I mean, not running around, obviously, but he could get around and go to the store. He didn't have to ride in the electric cart. He could walk, take his time. Did have some issues, but was feeling better and got so enthusiastic about the diet that he went online. Started looking for this, the carnivore diet. I had recommended that he looked at Paul Saladino and Sean Baker and a couple of other pages, but he couldn't identify with any of them. But he did find Dr. Ken Berry to be interesting. And he began to talk about all the things that he had learned from watching Ken Berry. Now, I had tried to contact Ken Berry, but obviously Ken Berry is a busy man, and he has more important things to do than contact some of us casual carnivores or even long-term carnivores like me that did it as a joke. So he never got back to him, but he still watched his videos pretty much religiously. Every Monday, Dr. Berry would have one of those question and answer sessions, and he would ask questions, but of course none of them would ever be answered because you'd have hundreds, maybe thousands of people joining in. But what he couldn't get from Ken Berry, he could ask me. I had all kinds of ideas on ways of preparing things. So over time, he just got better and better. So he started in 2022 is when he really got into the diet. Now, he started originally with the keto diet, but it was too difficult for him. He would tend to fall off and eat some non-keto foods. You know, um, it was one of those things. But with the Ken Berry channel, he became into the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs diet. It became a lot easier. So we would go and we would buy markdown beef. We'd go over to Gordon Foods and buy, several rolls of the ground beef, the fattiest ground beef we could get. He would also buy bacon, had bacon. Even had his little plastic bacon cooker that he had that he could put in the microwave. He was definitely a microwave person. He'd microwave burgers. Sometimes he even ate raw meat. He said he had done that before. So things were going reasonably well, but there was a little bit of a snag. Someone that has that much damage, that had maybe 30% of their heart, it's kind of hard to recover from that. And the other thing is, he was extremely lazy. This was a person that would avoid labor at all costs. And I think a lot of it is that he believed that people who did physical labor were unsuccessful. So if you were performing physical labor in your later years, that means that you were basically a loser because you were not able to get the education and contacts to be able to have a nice, comfortable, air-conditioned job. Now, as someone who's done both types of work, I've done IT in air conditioning and artificial light. I've taught college courses for many years, over a decade. That was an indoor job. But I've also done physical work. The reason that I've continued to do physical work is because I hate working out. So I had mentioned to him, you might want to think about, I mean, you are a senior citizen, you're in your 70s. They do have programs where you could go to a gym and you could work out and at least try, but it never happened. And this is someone that would like to stay up all night on the computer, stay up till 5 in the morning, get up afternoon, go and do whatever you're going to do. I kept telling him, you need to get up. The first thing you do in the morning is go outside, get the sunshine, get familiar with your surroundings. And then you could know as you go during the day what time it is. But didn't happen. So he had a setback last year and was hospitalized and then had to be rehabilitated in a nursing home. But to my delight, he was able to recover from that nursing home and was able to get back out driving again and doing his thing. So he was doing quite well. Now, what I didn't mention is that also, as part of his medical issue, he had blacked out while he was driving and crashed into a traffic circle. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, and the car wasn't seriously damaged. And in exchange for um, him getting better, I said, look, when you get better, I will fix your car so that you can drive around, and that's what I did. So for several months after that, he was doing quite well. Then he managed to twist his ankle and use that as an excuse for not going out and doing anything. And over time, just became more and more sedentary, then began to have other symptoms, actually began to have lymphatic buildup, swelling, and so on. And I kept telling him it's because you're not exercising. The diet can only take you so far, and you need to move around. It's very important. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm always on the move. It's hard for me to sit still. When I'm sitting here trying to do a video, sometimes I just want to get up and do something else. And once I have a decent camera or something where I can do portable videos, I'm going to do that, especially when the weather's not 95 degrees and hotter every day. But anyway, as of a few months ago, my friend was basically unable to take care of himself and eventually had to be hospitalized and ended up back in rehabilitation again. But this time, there was no coming back. So in the end, he was back and forth to the hospital, into rehabilitation, into long-term care, hospice care, and then eventually just passed away. So I guess in the end, this may or may not have been true. And to his credit, he did try this at the end. So my point to you is very simple. Don't waste your life. If something isn't working for you, try something else. They always say think outside the box. Or even a fast food place says think outside the bun. You might want to just analyze your life a little bit. If things are not going the way that they're planned to go, why not look at the example of others? And be careful, because you'll find a lot of people out there that are in it just for what they can get. There's a lot of selfish people there. I mean, look at all the YouTube videos. I mean, all you got to do is look at some of the vegan channels and see it's just about money. It's about some kind of dogma, religion, whatever. But beware. There's a lot of carnivores out there too, and some of them, they may be having the same motivation. So again, if things aren't working for you, look into it. Maybe there's some other options. But don't be dogmatic and don't be stubborn. And don't be the next victim